Man, been following the career for a while. Had some combos with Mike Brown, when you guys were working together. Love that dude and love the work that you guys did. When you were preparing for this camp, what about this camp was different, or what about this camp was the same that you worked through?
For this particular camp, it was, we're still going through the pandemic. So this is the second time I fight since the lockdown. Last year I fought in June, and it was similar circumstances with the gym and travel restrictions and the ability to get training partners and different people in and out of South Florida to training camp. The Gym American Top Team is shut down to the public, and they have a bunch of things in place. Everybody's being tested. Coaches are being tested. We're checking temperatures at the door. There's a certain amount of people allowed on the mats at certain times. So in that case, training camps are a little bit different. But there's so many amenities there, and there's such a solid stable of fighters who live there in South Florida that we didn't have to really reach. The gym is so big and there's so much talent there. We didn't have to really reach too far out into the MMA world to bring people in for this particular training camp. So I'm fortunate with that, being part of such a big team, that we have the ability to put together training camps and run things smoothly, and you barely feel a difference.
Yeah. When you're going into those workouts, how are the days sort of set up? Your strength or your conditioning, your sparring. Can you take me a little bit through what a common week will look like for you?
Yeah, it kind of phases. We go through different phases as camp progresses, and we're at different parts. But I would say an average week at the beginning of training camp would be wrestling on Monday morning. I would either do a drill session or take Monday night off. Tuesday, I usually have sparring in the mornings. I only spar the last 5 weeks of camps. So at the beginning of training camp, it'll be a drill session in the morning, and then a strength and conditioning session at night. And all these things are kind of self-regulated. If we think we need to do one thing differently or drill something more focused, then we'll make those adjustments as training camp goes on. If we notice something watching footage that my opponent is doing that we want to try to capitalize on or try to prepare for, then we'll make those drill sessions really dedicated to that. But Wednesdays will be grappling in the morning, and I'll run 3 miles after. Thursday it goes back to sparring, and then maybe another strength and conditioning session. Fridays I usually either do jiu-jitsu or kickboxing in the morning, strength and conditioning at night. Saturdays are always dedicated to mixed martial arts. We do 5-5 small gloves at a good pace, not bang each other up, but to get good reps in. And Sunday I run 5 miles every Sunday in training camp. So that's an average fight week. And in the middle of those things I'm not talking about, I'll do physical therapy, visit my chiropractor, do cryotherapy. There's a lot of things in between all of those, stretch sessions, massages. There's a lot of things that go on throughout the days that I'm not adding in there, but that's like the gist of a rough beginning of training camp.
Yeah. When it comes to looking at that footage, clearly for this match, you guys had a few things you wanted to capitalize on. Like you mentioned, those kicks were unbelievable. So how do you incorporate that into your training? Is it just in that kickboxing element, or are you also doing things to sort of increase your leg strength through the strength and conditioning and those other elements of your training?
Well, if we have an idea, like we think a leg kick might be a big weapon in a particular fight, then all those other sessions that we're doing, we're always looking to notice when opportunities are available to throw those kicks or to add them in. So that when we have a game plan, that kind of goes across the board of the training sessions. We always add it in just to stay fresh and to keep working it to where it becomes second nature. I'm not out there looking for it or thinking about it. I'm just doing it. As far as the leg strengthening stuff goes, Phil Daru over at Daru Strong Performance, he does everything with my strength and conditioning for my last probably maybe 10 fights. I kind of leave that up to him. He's a student of the game, and he does his research, and I really am confident in his preparation. So I don't get too far into the sciences of what we're doing. I just show up and listen to what he says. He'd be a guy maybe would be great to interview because he can talk to you about the ins and outs and the method behind the madness. This dude's like I said, a student of the game. He's always trying to stay on the learning curve and keep up with everything. And I'm happy to have him in my corner.
Yeah, man, I've been following his work for a while too. This gives me a great excuse to reach out to him for sure. I'm looking forward to chatting with him, and yeah, maybe the crew can connect me. But yeah, so talk about the people you have in your corner. You know, how have you found those guys, and how they sort of help you through this fight?
The guys who actually corner me are Mike Brown. He's pretty much my head coach at American Top Team. Daya Davis is my boxing coach. And Thiago Alves, longtime UFC veteran, now bare knuckle fighter, just a guy who's been around combat sports. I think since he was 14 years old, he started kickboxing in Brazil, and he's a guy who took the hard road like me and made his way in fighting and earned everything he has. So, and he's the guy who I was a fan of before I ever met him. I watched the guy. I love the technique and his personality. He's just always in a good mood, good people to have around. So those group of guys, those three guys are always in my corner. And I usually add in my fight manager, Robert Ovetta, who's been in my corner, so to say, helping me get deals and fights with the UFC since I was 18 years old.
Tell me about the experience of having to do it during this times, as far as traveling out to the fight island, having to quarantine, you know, the elements of that on top of already the physical implications of that fight, having to deal with the mental implications of that.
Yeah, I fought last year during the quarantine, and it was a lot different because it was a fight in Vegas. A lot less moving parts, and it was easy. This particular fight, I did my training camp in South Florida like I always do, but I had to go to Vegas for quarantine, 2 days there, get tested multiple times, stuck in a hotel room for 2 days. Then I spent a day in the air flying out to Abu Dhabi. And then once I landed there, it was another quarantine process. And we were pretty much quarantined for 2 weeks out there. I was able to leave my hotel room and go to the outside, but I couldn't leave the hotel property in Abu Dhabi. And it was pretty secure. They had guards everywhere. And even through that, we were being tested every day. But it was just a different landscape for everyone, not just fighters. And I roll with the punches and the problems that came up on the spot because I've never done this before. It was a learning experience, but very different. I've been fighting a long time, and this was a different kind of trip for sure.
That's awesome, man. I've talked to a few fighters about visualization. You know, when you're going into an epic fight like this, one that you have a history with, what are the things that you're imagining? What are the things you have in your head when you're training, getting ready, and what's the outcome that you're trying to imagine? How do you place yourself?
Yeah, when it comes to visualization, I know everybody does it different. And some people make predictions of exactly what's going to happen. I don't get that crazy. When I sit back in the bed at night after long days, or even when I'm in training camp, or fight week, wherever I'm at, I just visualize being in the moment, trying to feel that feeling of what it feels like for that canvas to be underneath my feet, the smell of the leather, the feel of the lights. It's a very special and strange moment that I can't really explain to you what it feels like when all eyes are on you and it's fight time and Bruce Buffer's introducing us. It's kind of surreal. It's what you've been getting ready for the last 10 weeks of your life, doing everything to prepare for that moment, the next 15 or 25 minutes. So when I visualize being in the moment, breathing in the air, the smells, the feelings. That's more important to me because I know if I'm in the moment and perform well, then I'll leave the octagon happy no matter what happens. I just want to perform well. So that's what I focus on. I focus on being in the moment and getting my hand raised. I don't think of certain scenarios where I knock the guy out or certain scenarios where I submit the guy. I just think of being in the moment, man. I think that's important for me. Everybody's different, but for me, I just like to be locked in.
That's great, man. What are the smells? Is it the mat? Are there certain
It's
things
the
that key
metal.
into?
There's certain things that you only know until you make that walk. The leather, the gloves, the Vaseline, the canvas has a certain smell. The metal fencing, yeah, man, it's crazy. Even if I go get an old pair of gloves and smell them, I can, when I visualize, I can smell it. I know exactly the feeling and smell. It's crazy.
That's awesome, man.
Sometimes there's fights before you that have been kind of, there's blood in the octagon and that rusty kind of copper smell is in the air. It smells like a battlefield.
Absolutely, dude. Tell me about what it feels like. Like you said, you're not visualizing a particular outcome, but to score that knockout punch. I've sparred a little bit, I do a little boxing, but never taken anybody out like that. So, just how do you explain it? What does it feel like when you score that hit? Do you even notice it, or is it just Or do you know when that moment's happened?
It's you're not doing a whole lot of thinking in that moment. You're just reacting and doing what you're trained to do, what you've been preparing to do. It's, you know, when the fight's over and you know it's over, it's actually for me a feeling of relief. Like, I did it, I got it done. You know, there's so much weight on your shoulders going into these fights, and yeah, it's a feeling of relief.
You've had some epic fights that you've won against some crazy fighters, man. People that, you know, you've taken down a lot of the guys that are of that top tier level. What do you think it is that allows you to do that? What's the thing that you consistently put forth to allow you to score wins against these guys that are top level guys?
Self-belief, work ethic, focus, um, planning, a lot of things. You know, years and years and years of work and years of sacrifice, and trying to go on this journey to be the best fighter that I can possibly be. I think plays into all these fights. You know, things that I've done 10 years ago and lessons that I've learned 10 years ago are still here with me walking into these fights. And I think that's important. It's just been a lot of learning, a lot of growth, a lot of understanding, not only the fight game, but understanding myself. It's been you know, it's been a journey, man, of fighting and of understanding myself.
Can you tell me a little about the recovery that you do that keeps your body going throughout all these sessions and these fights?
Yeah, I usually do like 2 massages a week, just to stay loose and to keep my muscles healthy. I do cryotherapy. I go to the chiropractor once a week, get my body adjusted, get stretched there. We do cold lasering there. I stretch every night. I have a massage gun. My daughter loves to beat me up with that thing. She thinks it's funny.
Nice. Which one do you have? Just
I have
whatever's around her.
Yeah, I have a one that's called Hyperice, I believe, or Hypervolt.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah, it has the interchangeable heads to hit different muscles and things. So, but I don't go too crazy with recovery. I know, like, I've done hyperbaric chambers and things like that in the past. That's not something I do often. I kind of keep it simple. I listen to my body. If I'm feeling run down, I take a day off, take a night off. When I was a younger fighter, I thought the more I suffered, the harder I pushed, even on days that I felt bad, that I would be more successful. But that's not it. As I'm getting older, I'm realizing, you know, I just need to take a step back sometimes and allow my body to heal and enjoy getting back in the gym and feeling good, and then I'll perform well. So yeah, I just kind of listen to my body. The only things that remain constant are the massages and the stretching and the chiropractor. Other than that, I kind of take it as it comes. If something's hurting more, we focus on that. If not, I just try to stay loose pretty much.
Nice. When it comes to obviously you're doing a lot of work in the gyms, you're doing a lot of stuff in the box. You know, are you doing anything outdoors? Do you have any hobbies when it comes to running, that sort of thing out in the world?
Yeah, all my runs are outside. All of my runs are outside. I don't like running on treadmills. I feel like a hamster on a wheel, man. Especially like if I'm doing 5 miles on a treadmill, I'll go crazy. Yeah. So I run 3 miles on Wednesday, 5 miles on Sunday. Every now and then, as it gets closer to the fight, and I'm need to burn more calories, I'll do another 3 mile run. But that's about it. I run probably 8 miles a week, 8 to 12 miles a week on regular weeks in training camp, and that's just for weight management, honestly, keeping my body burning, and a little bit of active recovery on Sundays, because I don't go into the gym on Sundays. So I'll get that 5 mile run in at a decent pace, maybe 9-minute pace. As it gets closer, I start pushing a little bit faster. So nothing too crazy, just get my body sweating, get home, stretch really good, watch some football, and enjoy life, man.
Tell me about the scenery that you have during those runs, man. Is it suburbia? Is it like proper outdoors? You know, what are you looking at?
When I'm in Coconut Creek, I'm not too far from the beach, but I'm not going to get in my car and drive to go run on the beach. I have before, but on the regular weeks, it's pretty much sidewalk, get some nice palm trees. There's very nice neighborhoods in Coconut Creek, Florida. So the scenery's good, a couple of lakes, but it's sidewalk the whole way.
Yeah. Anybody recognizing you? Anybody shouting you out, knowing you're repping for the fight?
Yeah, of course, always. I don't mind it. I don't mind waving when I'm running, but I just don't like to stop and take pictures, and that happens sometimes. I'm not going to blow anybody off, but if I'm doing, you know, on track for 8-minute miles or something like that, I'm trying to keep it going. I don't want to stop. But
we'll put that out there. So you're not being rude. You're saying, just give me a wave. I'll wave you back and you're good.
There's a pandemic, for God's sakes.
True. I like to hear you've had such a history with training, such a history for preparing for fights, strength conditioning. Is there one like exercise or one movement that you sort of have brought into your routine that has stayed constant throughout your work with Phil that really you think adds a lot to your fighting?
Explosive movements, I think, is something like before I met Phil, I didn't do a whole lot of. I've always been around weight rooms and been around strength and conditioning programs where we're doing burpees and things like that. But torque and setting yourself up with weight and then just making these short, I guess, fight-oriented movements, using the muscles that you would use to throw a cross or to get someone off you or to drive a takedown. Short bursts of functional movements that matter in fighting is something that's a new wrinkle in the last few years of my strength and conditioning program that I really enjoy.
Are you using cables or are you using dumbbells? How are you getting that?
We're using everything you can think of, man. We have cables, we have sleds. I mean, like I said, Phil can answer these questions, but he has some tools at his facility for sure.
And when it comes to belts, is that really a driving force? Is it more just getting the fights in and winning those fights?
It's I want to be the undisputed world champion. You know, sitting here behind me right there, I have the interim world title. I'd love to be the undisputed world champion. We'll see.